Why do we have a water crisis in South Africa?
Lynette, good morning. We have to start by understanding South Africa is a water scarce country. Our annual average rainfall is less than 800 millimeters per year, and the average rainfall for all over the world is 850 millimeters per year. So we're starting off with not having as much water available as other countries. And then we have a culture of being blasé about water, of, oh, it's going to rain. I don't have to worry so much about water. And municipalities and the people who are in charge of municipal water management have kind of the same attitude and don't think that water is something that need to be paid attention to. So we just saw a couple of weeks ago one of the council members of Mogale City acting really blasé about dumping untreated sewage into the cradle of humankind, and which is shocking. So we have a water crisis in South Africa because people's attitudes towards water is, I don't have to care about it. And if we can change people's attitudes towards water and say, listen, guys, water is something we need every day. We need to really look out and look after our water and make sure that the people we vote into power or elect into officials, into offices, are capable and aware and are doing the right thing to protect our water resources.
You regularly look at what the crisis is in South Africa. You do regular research and training to familiarize yourself with the environment, but also to create awareness. If you look at South Africa currently, where are the problem areas? Where would you say, listen, if we need to address this, this is where we need to start?
We need to start at what I refer to as consequence management, and that is at the municipal level. What we are seeing happening in Johannesburg with water shortages and Bloemfontein and Nelson Mandela Bay is a crisis that has finally reached the metropolitan municipality areas, but has been ongoing for more than 10 years in smaller places, in villages, in towns, Voorriesburg, Klokkelaan, and Daar and Aliwal Noord. All the smaller places have been experiencing these very same problems for a very long time. And we are experiencing these problems because there are people appointed in municipalities who make decisions without there being consequences. So for us to address the problem, there have to be consequences for municipal officials who work with public funds in making decisions about water. And finally, last week we had a Supreme Court case where consequences for municipal officials were now approved and is going to be made part of the law. And that is an excellent positive development, that there can be consequences for municipal officials. In the case of the cholera outbreak we had a year and a half ago in Hammanskraal, 4 municipal officials from the finance department got suspended because they appointed a corrupt contractor to upgrade the Rooiwal water treatment works, and the contractor was obviously not able or capable, but they got kickbacks. And so finally, those 4 municipal officials were suspended. If we can hold our municipal officials to a higher standard and to account with consequences, we will immediately see improvement in the water governance in the country.
What we've now found since last week is that our municipality and Rand Water informed us that they would literally, we won't have access to water from 9 p.m. till 4 a.m. daily until they've built up the reservoirs. Talk to me about that kind of warning implementation. Is this a precursor to what you can expect going forward, that we are in dire straits where this is concerned?
Well, I think that's one of those things which we can call a chicken egg situation. One have to remember that under the let's call it previous administration of the city of Joburg, there were some shenanigans in terms of funding, in terms of finances, and money was not paid to service providers. Amongst others, city of Joburg owed Randwater a bunch of money. And without money, Randwater cannot do the maintenance that they need to do. So finally, they received some money and did some maintenance during June, July. Um, but the municipality of Johannesburg, because of this lack of accountability of municipal officials, have neglected to do proper maintenance in the meantime on their pipes and infrastructure systems, which now means a great effort had to go into fixing these pipes. And now it takes time for water to be pumped up and again to the reservoirs from where it can be distributed to households and to domestic users. Water has, we cannot drink water as it is straight from rivers. There's all kinds of contaminants in it which will be harmful for us. We are dependent on the municipalities, or firstly Rand Water, to take the water, purify it, and then the municipalities to distribute it. Some municipalities where they do not have a Rand Water do their own purification and then distribution. Now, water can be corrosive. Water can damage pipes. So you need to have regular inspections on your infrastructure, and where you find problems in your infrastructure, you need to do maintenance. If you don't have the money to do that maintenance, the infrastructure will collapse. And so what we see, and this is a third part of the problem in the city of Johannesburg, is what we refer to as non-revenue water or lack of payment for water. So you would, for example, have people who do not pay for their water. They run behind. And in Bloemfontein, we've seen that the people who do not pay for their water, in most of the 60% of the cases, is national government who don't pay the municipality for their water supply. So now, if the municipality will go ahead and say cut off that national department's water, there will be big nonsense about it. And because they don't want to fight with each other, they don't cut off the national department for non-payment. So firstly, non-payment for water is an issue. And then the second part that's the issue is what is referred to as non-revenue water, is water losses. From the Val Dam alone, where Randwater takes it out and then treats it and then starts distributing it up to Joburg and Tshwane and Ekurhuleni and so on, up to 45% of that water is lost in the system due to leaks, due to pipe bursts, due to illegal connections. Now, any water that is lost like that cannot be charged for. That's money down the drain. So you pay all the money to purify the water, and it costs a lot of money, electricity, chemicals, to purify the water. You distribute the water, but then you can never get paid for that water because it's lost water. So non-revenue water and non-payment for water is a big contributing factor to why we are in the situation that we are.
When you speak to some of these government officials and officials at municipalities, and they speak to you obviously because of your experience and you are a water specialist, are there similarities in the challenges that all these municipalities are facing?
Yes, absolutely. The challenges faced by Joburg is the same as, now I'm talking, there's a differentiation between elected elecons, those people who was as councillors, versus the officials employed by the municipality. And the officials are often, they can be skilled. I was quite impressed, for example, by the young guy who is operating the Dashboard Sewage Works and his absolute brilliant knowledge of the nitrate cycle. But he cannot do anything He cannot chlorinate the water if the councillor, the political appointee, does not sign the procurement order for chlorine. He can be as good as he wants to be, he can be as skilled as he wants to be. There's nothing he can do. He cannot chlorinate the water by looking at it. He needs the chemical, and for that, he needs a politician's signature. And I think that's where a lot of our problems lie, is that the procurement processes are often influenced by political decision making, which is not necessarily in the best interest of the city, but more in the best interest of the politician.
When we get all these notifications of no access to water or reservoirs running dry, how do you plan for it as a user?
Well, normally, and I've seen some of these notifications, they give you a time frame, 24 hours, 48 hours. And so, we've also had similar situations here in Pretoria, where I stay. Then we would just say, okay, no flushing the toilet unless it's a real number two, and keep the water safe. And we would fill a bathtub with some water or a couple of buckets, because that can take you through the 48 hours quite easily. But when it comes to for weeks and weeks on end, clearly that becomes a bigger challenge. If people are able, a short-term solution might be to have something like a JoJo tank, but even the water in the JoJo tank has to come from somewhere. And just to think that you can drink rainwater from your roof is to sink yourself into hospital. You cannot, because there's all kinds of flying things, and all of them leave E. coli and fecal coli on the roof, and that will end up in your rainwater tank. So that water is not drinkable. In addition, during day zero scenario in the city of Cape Town, the city actually issued a bylaw that prevented people from capturing rainwater, because that rainwater, that stormwater runoff, is needed to keep the sewer system running. That stormwater is what pushes the sewage to the sewage works. Now you can imagine what mess it will be if the sewage that you flush down the toilet is just not going anywhere because there's no rainwater to flush it. So in a short-term situation, I would say 24, 48 hours, filling a bathtub with water will be more than sufficient to take you through till when water is available again. To come back to your previous question, one would obviously think that drilling a borehole or accessing groundwater could be a solution. And while in some areas it could be, one has to be also aware that groundwater, especially in urban areas, is not necessarily drinkable. There are all kinds of things that can affect the quality of groundwater: leaking underground storage tanks at filling stations, leaking septic lines, seepage from dry cleaners, seepage from any place that uses any chemicals. So one cannot be under the assumption that your groundwater will be under potable quality. Also, groundwater assumes the quality of the rock in which it is. And sometimes the rock is very old, ancient marine rock, and is extremely salty. That's why we get names like Brakfontein, because that water is not suitable for human consumption. So in addition, in a dolomitic area like Johannesburg, too much obstruction of groundwater can cause formation of sinkholes. When everybody starts drilling boreholes, all of a sudden the whole neighborhood is going to disappear down a sinkhole because everybody's obstructing. So you have to be so extremely careful in terms of your plans and options that you consider when thinking about water management plans. And the best advice I can give, it is one of these responsibilities that is everyone's, is number one, fix all the leaking taps and toilets in your own house. Number two, get involved with the municipality, especially when they do formulation and review of the integrated development plans or IDPs. And number three, hold them to account personally. And if it has to go to number four and criminal charges being laid against municipal officials, do not be scared to do that, because that's the only way where we can get the country out of the grips of corrupt politicians.